What's up, Buffalo Bills fans? I know what you're thinking. Oh, look, he's doing videos every day now. And I mentioned a few things in my last video that got me thinking. A couple of things, and obviously this is what the video is about. I sit there and I listen to WGR, listen to some other Bills fans, some of my friends, and there's this big conundrum. The conundrum is, and it seems like for the last few years it's been this way, CJ Spiller. What to do with CJ Spiller? So I sat there and I looked back at his history. Everybody says the common thread is everybody says Gailey knew how to use him. And I say pox on that. He didn't use him much as a rookie. He forced him out there, and he does then what he does a lot now. He bounces a lot of runs outside, and they end up in second and longs, second and nines and eights. He doesn't punch the ball up in there. He refuses to run to contact. He constantly wants to bounce outside and see, green grass. And he really didn't play that much as a rookie. He was just kind of, they were wanting to feature Marshawn Lynch to facilitate a trade, and then Fred ended up taking up most of the carries. Same story into 2011, that Fred looked like he was having an MVP type of year until he got hurt, and that was over a year and a half plus that their first round pick did nothing. And then all of a sudden, I guess they were like, well, we have to play with this guy a little bit, and that's what they did. And he had some success. Everybody got excited. Enter 2012. Fred gets hurt the first game. CJ has a big game and a loss. He has a few more big games and he ends up getting hurt. Then the whole question was, well, we don't want to see Fred anymore. We want to see CJ. Even I felt that way at the time. And you look back and you start to see the common, two different staffs, two different philosophies, front offices, but they handle this guy the same way. So it got me thinking. We all love the comparison game, like the analogy game. Like, who does this guy like? Who does this guy play like? Who is a player like him that was just completely frustrating for a fan base and for maybe the NFL? Just, he should be better than what he is. He should be more of this, but he's this. And the Bills fan base, obviously, like I said, the only conduit of Bills talk I really use is WGR, just to hear some of the opinions and things, and some of the opinions of the guys who talk on there. We all know the names. And I look back, and the problem is the fans always, it's the coaches. The coaches they're incompetent. They don't know how to use them. They're not doing this. They should be doing this. They should, everybody knows better than the coaches, right? We love that. And the problem is, it's hard because this staff really has there's no real history to draw from. There's no real, baseline of success. There's really no baseline of an identity yet. The quarterback, in their first year, they didn't know who the starting quarterback was going to be. They drafted a quarterback. There were, a bunch of injuries ensued, and obviously through no fault of their own. So we really have no idea what they were going to do with the quarterbacks. Was it starting Cobb, letting EJ just chill out and watch, or if they were going to throw EJ right in right away. It started to filter out that they were going to play Cobb. And the fan base, like I've stated, we all wanted Manuel. The reason I say that is the quarterback is important. That quarterback impacts the entire offense. We know that. We've seen that. Not to sound like a broken record. Now, into this year, they made a conscious change at quarterback. This is we're doing this because we're willingly doing this, not because injuries or some other extenuating circumstances forces us. But back to CJ. I look for a player, and I also look for a coach, a staff, an organization that has an identity, one that a winning culture, uh, winning, uh, just winning throughout their entire tenure there, and tremendous offensive success. And bingo, light bulb. New Orleans Saints, 2006, their first round pick, Reggie Bush. That's who CJ Spiller is. He's Reggie Bush, and Reggie Bush is him. They're the same exact player. The same exact player going through the same exact things. And none of us as football fans that are hardcore fans, would ever question Sean Payton's ability to call plays, design plays, deploy offensive players. None of us. And they had the exact same problem. And who was their offensive coordinator? Doug Marrone. And another thing, Reggie was only there another year after Marrone left to go to Syracuse because they didn't re-sign him. They traded him to Miami in 2010. So you have this offensive staff that has this, everybody's third overall, second overall pick. He was much more of a polarizing figure in college football scene than CJ was, even though everybody loves CJ's skills and ability to make big plays. They're similar kind of players, very similar body types, rocked up upper bodies, not too big or thick from the waist down, very explosive, very shifty, dynamic. And it was like, wow. Because, like I stated, nobody's going to question Sean Payton and his ability to manage an offense in any capacity. But this staff is under fire for it with CJ, a same exact kind of player. Same exact kind of player. You notice now this year they're making him return kicks. And I think going forward, the way I say, even enhance it, have him returning punts. Use him more as a receiver than a conventional running back. And the way to remedy that is to make it much more simpler. Activate Bryce Brown. You have two backs that you prefer back there, that you trust to pick up a blitz, that you trust to gain tough yards between the tackles. So it makes sense to me only to just enhance what you have in him as much as possible. Because I don't think he'll be back after this year. I don't have that. I don't have that in my stomach that he's going to be back. I just feel like they probably would think it best if they part ways. And the more you see the success of these undrafted backs, Brandon Oliver, a great case in point example, the more and more it really limits and damages running backs getting big paydays in free agency, getting drafted high, because there's just more and more evidence that they're everywhere. It's proliferated from up and down the draft board all the way into free agency and drafted free agency. I'm sorry. So I want to know what you guys think about that comparison, about the utilization, the criticism, and I think that people need to, do a little bit of homework, a little bit of history, and see that there was a staff that's accrued a lot more time, a lot more, had a lot more success, have a great offensive resume. They had a similar player and were very, just baffled seemingly about what to do with him. And they had a very stable situation at quarterback. That was big signing, was signing Drew Brees. They were competing with the Miami Dolphins for Drew Brees. And so they've had that stability at quarterback. The Bills haven't. So it's very hard when you have injuries at the position with quarterback and inconsistent play to have any kind of offensive identity, because the premium offensive teams have that. Hence, case in point, think even though EJ is healthy, Orton gives them the ability right now to have bigger impactful plays in the pass game. Because if you can't make big plays, impactful plays in the passing game, you can't win, and you can't win big. We saw it last week. One of the game was big, impactful pass plays. Goodwin, the play action to Greg, even though that wasn't it's a touchdown, and then the Watkins, and there was a few other throws in the game that were impressive. You gotta get enough big plays in the pass game, and you gotta the run game. You know, everybody has this vacuum, you know, Back to the Future thing. Well, you got to run the football. I think you need to run the football when you need to run the football. You want to establish it, but you need to be able to get tough yards when you need tough yards. You need to be able to pick up a yard or two when the other team basically knows it. You know, Fred has shown that ability, and CJ has come up woefully short in it. So I think doing those other things with him, you can put him on the field at the same time as another back, have him return punts along with kicks. The more you can get him comfortable and get the ball in his hands in space, I think that it only gives you, because I think he's worth keeping around for the potential of that 25 to 40 plus yard play. And he obviously has the ability to take it the distance. We've seen it, saw it this year. Also, he garners attention from the defense. His speed and his ability to pop big plays warrants their attention. So I think it would behoove them not to just take a step back, all have a seat and say, hey, this is what we need to do with this guy. Whatever we do with him after this year is whatever. But right now, this is what we need to do. And I even thought, like, you want to trade him? You can trade him. But you got to find the right team. The right team, who could that be? You look for a contender. You look for one who's in win now mode, who's aggressive. I think about Denver. Denver is in total win now mode, year to year with Peyton Manning. They have an injury at running back. They brought in a few running backs today. They don't really have anybody like CJ in the backfield. They have a few bigger guys like Hillman, CJ Anderson, I think Monte Ball. None of those guys have really taken the position by the reins and just run with it and become the number one. That could be an interesting location. Maybe they can get something decent in return. San Francisco, another team I thought of. They only have Gore and Hyde on their running back depth chart. Nobody else, only a fullback. And their offense is kind of devoid of big play ability. They're kind of a grinded out offense, especially without Vernon Davis. He's been banged up this season. So there's a couple of another idea. Or you can just sit him. Just say, hey, we're going to activate Bryce Brown and we're going to use Dixon and Jackson. And I think that's the wrong way to go, because you never want a malcontent in the locker room. You just don't want that in any way, shape, or form. You don't want it. In my opinion, I think you use him how I mentioned. Use him or keep him around for those reasons. Use him like Reggie Bush. That's my take on that. Even if you look at their numbers, to just wrap this little thing up between CJ and Reggie, you look at their career numbers. He's got much more carries than CJ, but he's got over twice the amount of carries. 4.3 yards a carry for Reggie Bush. His first 3 years in New Orleans, his first 3 years, 3.6 yards a rush on 155 attempts, 157 attempts, 3.7. Next year, less carries, 106, 3.8. Then they really limit his touches down to 70, but he's up to 5.6 a pop. Limit his touches again, and his average per down, it went down, but he started returning punts more frequently in those later years in New Orleans. From 08 to 10, he returned punts more often. Last time he returned a punt was in Miami, but it was sparing. But he was used much more as a receiver. You see his targets up in the hundreds and 90s, the 70s, the 60s. But it's a similar type of player. Right now, with half the carries, CJ's at 5.5 yards even per carry with half the carries. And catches, he's up to 152. Reggie's got appreciably a lot more, 460, but the average Reggie 7.6, CJ 7.7. He averages 17. See, that's the number that's got to go up. Those receiving yards. 17.8 yards per game. This year he's up to 21.2. I think you got to increase that number. You really got to increase that number. Reggie Bush for his career, 30.7 yards. Yards per game rushing career. This is a real stark one. 48.4. 48.4. CJ, 49 even. Again, they are, I think they're tied at the hip. They're as identical a player as you could ever link, in my opinion. Okay, again, let me know your feedback and your thoughts about that. Sorry to be so long-winded about it. I just really wanted to hammer my point home about it and give you guys as much information, even though some of it was repetitive, as I can. Also, you've had Jim Schwartz going back to Detroit. There was people irritated about him getting carried off the field or whatever. I didn't address it in the last video. Me, I don't care. I don't like. See, what I don't like about sports now is we're sucking all the fun out of it, and everybody is offended by everything. It's an emotional game. Sports is an emotional game. That's why baseball has taken a hit. You can't pump your fist after a home run. You looked at the home run for too long, so now we're going to throw a projectile at your head the next time you come up to bat. But how many times did Randy Johnson, pump his fist after he struck a guy out? Or, other pitchers. It's so you got to be robotic. You can't dunk on the goalpost. You can't celebrate with teammates. It's ridiculous. I mean, you want these guys to be like cyborgs. I want to, and the coaches too. I like the fantasy and the idea of these guys not liking each other. I don't like. Sometimes it bothers me when I see the teams be so buddy and they're so clicky and they're exchanging jerseys and taking pictures. I really want the idea of them not liking their opponent. Not that they're just a bunch of friends looking to make money together. I don't want to believe that. I know some element of that is true, but for my own mental fantasy, I really would like to think sometimes there's a dislike there. But more on that. This week you have obviously Pepper Johnson going up against his old team in the Patriots, I think he felt a little slighted. He never got a chance to be a defensive coordinator there, having been one of Belichick's former defensive players in I think both in Cleveland and obviously with the Giants. Also, another connection that really nobody's talked about. You have Kyle Orton going up against his former head coach, current offensive coordinator for the Patriots, Josh McDaniels. And his last year, McDaniels' year of 2010, he was yinged and yanged for Tebow before he got fired. I think Bolin was show me mode. And in 2011, after he was fired and John Fox took over, he was traded because of the relationship between him and the Golden Boy. And, I think they wanted to see what they had in Tebow. So they had to clear the room and get Orton out of there, and they made the trade. So I think he's gonna have that little bit of a chip and that little bit of extra oomph this week to say, hey, I remember this. And he was in the same situation. McDaniels got the job in Denver in 2009. The Patriots ended up going to Denver in 2009. So it's at the Bills this week, and Denver beat them with Orton at quarterback. So let's see. It'll be interesting. He's been here before. Obviously, I don't think this is too big for him. He's been here before. Now he's here again a few years later. And we'll find out on Sunday. There's a lot of little interesting side tidbits in this game. I just haven't heard that one mentioned yet. It hit me last night. I meant to do a video. I messed it up. I tried to upload it, and it didn't upload. And I was like, oh, crap. So I'm coming back doing this one. Let me know what you guys think about my opinions, my my thoughts on the comparison between CJ and Reggie, the Orton thing going up against McDaniels. He gonna have a chip on his shoulder. Him having been in this situation before, maybe has some insight into some of what they like to do offensively. Obviously, I think he probably does if he looks at the tape. But he's probably going to be spending time on their defense. I mostly likely imagine he is. But again, let me know what you guys think. Love hearing what you guys' thoughts and opinions are as well. Have a good rest of the week, guys, and take care.